The story begins with the city skyline glowing against the night, office lights flickering across tall buildings. Inside one of them, Andrea works late in a nearly empty office. She feels uneasy, pausing to peek through the blinds into the dim hallway outside her door. But nothing seems out of place. Still tense, she picks up her office landline and calls a detective, as if she's been working with him on something serious. After a brief, urgent exchange, she hangs up, grabs her bag, and rushes out of the office. Reaching the elevator, she steps inside, glancing nervously around her. As the doors close, her phone buzzes with an unknown number. When she answers, a man's voice warns her, "This is how the world will end." A high-pitched ringing fills her head. The walls of the elevator seem to press inward, closing in around her as fear overtakes her. Meanwhile, Jen, a jobless software engineer, is struggling to piece her life back together after a painful breakup with Brian. Her loneliness feels suffocating. Hoping for distraction, she attends her friend Gina's homecoming party, only to learn Brian is there too. Their eyes meet across the room, stirring memories Jen wishes she could forget. Before Jen and Brian can approach each other, Gina introduces her to Dr. Colin Mead, a psychiatrist with striking blue eyes. Colin appears intrigued, but Jen barely engages and soon drifts away, her attention pulled back to Brian. Later that evening, just as dinner is served, Jen quickly stops Brian from eating a dish with sesame oil, his allergy still fresh in her memory. Dr. Colin, seated nearby with a drink in hand, quietly observes the exchange as the moment settles between them. Later, after a few too many drinks, Jen sits quietly in a corner of the party. Dr. Colin approaches and tries to start a conversation, but she shows no interest in him. Before leaving the party, he slips his business card onto the desk. Jen doesn't pay much attention to it, still distracted by the lingering emotions of the evening. After the party, Jen steps out of Gina's house and waits for her Uber in the cool night air. Moments later, Brian walks out too. He says goodbye but lingers, hesitant to leave. Their brief conversation carries the weight of unresolved feelings. Later that night, Jen and Brian end up sleeping together. The next morning, Jen wakes up alone in bed. Brian has already left, leaving only a small note on his pillow. Over coffee, Jen confides in Gina about the previous night, still weighed down by regret and emotional pain. Gina listens and gently suggests she see Dr. Colin for therapy. Though unsure, Jen agrees to try one session. Jen enters Colin's office building, its sleek glass exterior hiding dim, quiet halls that carry a strange tension in the air. As she waits, a woman steps out of his office and asks her an odd question with a blank smile. Jen shifts uneasily as the woman walks off, then heads inside. Inside, Colin greets her warmly and invites her to talk. As Jen begins to open up, she speaks about her fractured life, how she once felt content with Brian until a miscarriage sent her spiraling into despair. Colin listens carefully and suggests that hypnosis might help her confront and heal from the pain she's been carrying. Though hesitant at first, Jen admits she longs for a sense of peace and happiness in her life. She agrees to try. Focusing on a flickering light, Jen drifts under Colin's calm voice. Birds chirp in the imagined forest around her. When she wakes, her mind feels clear, relaxed. There's a quiet confidence she didn't expect. Hours have passed, but she remembers nothing of what just happened. 3 months later, Jen's life seems to be back on track. She's found a new job and is slowly rebuilding her routine. While doing yoga with Gina, she mentions that she's been seeing Dr. Colin once a week for the past few months. Gina, however, complains that Dr. Colin refuses to do hypnosis on her, even though she's asked several times. That night, Jen has a strange dream. She's in bed with Dr. Colin and he's being intimate with her. Shaken, she quickly snaps out of it. The next morning, as Jen steps out of her apartment, she bumps into Dr. Colin. She tells him about her new job, and he offers to buy her coffee to celebrate and catch up. At the cafe, Jen says she now feels more motivated, focusing on exercise and meditation. They share a few laughs, and Colin opens up about his past, saying he was once married to a woman named Amy, the love of his life, who passed away. When Colin asks about Brian, Jen admits she's been avoiding him. Colin suggests she invite Brian over for dinner to clear the air. Taking his advice, Jen calls Brian to make plans. Later that day, as Jen approaches the grocery store, she gets a call from an unknown number. When she answers, her expression goes blank and she falls into a trance. She comes to her senses inside her house, dinner already prepared. A strange noise draws her to the bathroom. Inside, Brian is gasping for air, suffering from an allergic reaction. Paramedics arrive and Brian is rushed to the hospital in a coma. Later, Jen tells Gina she answered a call from an unknown number and remembers nothing after that, not even how dinner was made or what happened to Brian. Back at Colin's office, Jen says it's been 8 days and Brian is still in the hospital. Colin asks if she remembers anything from that evening, but she shakes her head. Doubts creep in about the hypnosis sessions, and Jen wonders if they're causing her blackouts. Colin reassures her, twisting her uncertainty into fear and convincing her to continue the treatment. That night, Jen dreams again of being intimate with Colin. Waking up disoriented, she walks into the kitchen for a sip of water. Suddenly, she remembers the supermarket receipt from the night before. Looking through it, she notices sesame oil, something she has no memory of buying. Pieces of the night come flooding back. She remembers a voice on the phone telling her to carry the fire, putting her into a trance. She sees herself adding sesame oil to Brian's food and calmly drinking wine as he struggles to breathe. Growing suspicious, Jen searches for information about Colin online. She discovers an article about a young woman found dead in an elevator, Andrea, who had filed a restraining order against her psychiatrist for harassment through hypnosis. Jen rushes to Gina with printed evidence from the internet, explaining how her memory lapses began after meeting Dr. Colin. She shows Gina articles about Andrea Bowen, who reported missing time and later died after filing a restraining order against Colin. At first, Gina brushes it off, calling it a big stretch. But as Jen lays out the evidence, including articles about Andrea Bowen, reports of hypnotists in other places misusing their treatments, and the receipt for sesame oil she found at home, Gina slowly starts to believe her. Jen explains she doesn't remember buying it, but it's the same ingredient that triggered Brian's allergic reaction. That's when Gina really starts to listen. Jen adds that Colin has no home address, no past jobs, and no records outside his office. Desperate for answers, they meet Detective Wade, who investigated Andrea Bowen's case. Jen explains her situation, and the detective admits he never found enough evidence against Colin. He shows them surveillance footage of Andrea's final moments, answering an unknown call in the elevator before panicking and collapsing. What she saw in those last seconds is still unclear to them, but it felt so real to her that the fear overwhelmed her, leading to a heart attack. The detective advises Jen to find a new therapist and leaves them with a warning. Outside the station, Gina admits that Colin hypnotized her during her last session just last week. They agree to cut ties with him completely. Meanwhile, the detective reopens Andrea's file and uncovers 2 more unexplained deaths of women who died in similar circumstances. Despite her decision to stay away, Jen nervously schedules a final session with Colin, asking for hypnosis again, curious to find out what happens to her while under. She secretly sets her phone to record. Throughout the meeting, she hides her tension, careful not to give herself away. With no emotion on his face, Colin guides Jen into a trance where his steady voice draws out truths she meant to keep hidden. After the session, Jen sits in her car in the parking lot, eager to replay the recording. At first, she listens intently, hoping to understand what happened under hypnosis. But her face drops as she hears Colin's calm voice revealing he knows everything. Her visit to the detective, the investigation into Andrea's case, and even that she's recording him. Panicking, Jen calls Gina and urges her to get home immediately. The line cuts out before she can finish. Meanwhile, Gina answers a call from an unknown number. Colin's voice tells her, "This is when the world ends." Falling into a trance, Gina begins hallucinating a spider crawling on her body. She screams at her husband to take it off, but he sees nothing. In her panic, Gina accelerates her car and crashes into a truck, killing both herself and her husband. Later that day, Detective Wade visits Colin's office to confront him. He asks if Colin used hypnosis on Gina. Colin admits he did, claiming it was only to treat her anxiety and arachnophobia. He also mentions that Andrea Bowen suffered from claustrophobia, and he treated her for it as well. But Wade presses further, pointing out a disturbing pattern. Colin has only used hypnotherapy on a handful of patients, and all of them are dead now, except Jen. Sensing Colin's calm but evasive answers, Wade gives him a sharp look before leaving, his tone carrying an unspoken warning. Later, Wade checks on Jen, finding her still struggling with Gina's death. He explains that Gina was only hypnotized after Jen began asking questions. He warns her that Andrea Bowen also started digging for answers before she died. Wade urges Jen to lay low for now, telling her Colin has been stalking her. After Wade leaves, there's a sudden knock at Jen's door. When she opens it, she finds Colin standing there. Without warning, he pushes his way inside and commands sharply, "Stop!" Jen freezes in place. Colin demands to know why she no longer trusts him. He insists that everything he's done was for her, including taking care of Gina and her husband, who were in the way. He warns that Detective Wade will be next. Before leaving, he tells Jen to relax, releasing her from his control. Shaken but free, Jen grabs her phone and tries to call Wade to warn him about Colin, but his phone is dead. At Wade's house, the detective hears a faint creaking sound. Suddenly, one of Colin's hypnotized patients emerges from a cabinet and attacks him. Wade fights back and manages to kill the attacker, but not without being injured. At the hospital, Jen visits Wade, who is recovering from his injuries. She also checks on Brian, still unconscious. Desperate for answers, Jen meets with another hypnotherapist. Though hesitant to trust anyone after Colin, she agrees to the session, realizing she has no other options if she wants to uncover the truth. Under hypnosis, fragments of memory rise to the surface. She hears Dr. Colin's voice, calm and deliberate, telling a strange story that mentions the name Xavier Sullivan. Flashes follow. A modern house nestled in dense woods, then Colin fastening a gold bracelet on her wrist engraved with March 6th and softly kissing her hand. Suddenly, Jen's breathing grows shallow, her body convulsing as if she's suffocating. The hypnotherapist panics, shaking her awake and warning that Colin has placed a psychological barrier in her mind to block others from accessing her memories. Jen grabs a pen and quickly writes down Xavier Sullivan and the house she saw in her vision. Determined to get answers, Jen searches the house address she wrote down after her hypnosis session. Online, she finds the location linked to a modern house surrounded by dense woods and confirms the image matches what she saw. She calls Wade and tells him what she's discovered. He urges her to wait for him, but Jen ignores his warnings and decides to go alone to the house. Inside, she finds old photos of Colin's wife, her appearance strikingly similar to Jen's. Colin suddenly appears behind her and reveals the truth. Xavier Sullivan was his father, the man who taught him everything about hypnosis. As Jen panics, Colin softly commands, "Sleep." At the hospital, Wade uncovers the truth. Dr. Colin's real name is Julian Sullivan, the son of Xavier Sullivan, a man who once used hypnosis to help the CIA plant false memories in people. The revelation chills Wade to his core. Knowing Jen is in grave danger, he rushes out of the hospital. Back at the house, Jen sits motionless as Colin paints her nails, her mind locked in his control. He whispers that he chose her because she looks, speaks, and even smells like his late wife. He says no one else has ever come as close to replacing her as Jen does. As his words echo in her head, fragments of memory begin to align. The dreams she thought were her own weren't dreams at all. They were pieces of his past carefully planted to make her believe she was living his wife's life. Suddenly, a sound from downstairs snaps her trance. Wade has arrived. Colin commands Jen to grip the bed frame and not let go, then leaves to confront the detective. As Colin moves through the house, Jen screams Wade's name. Hearing her, Wade rushes toward the sound but can't find her. Through the door, Jen cries out, warning him. Colin is outside and she's trapped. Wade freezes, staying silent, realizing Colin might be setting a trap. Instead of breaking the door down, he carefully steps back and begins searching the house. The lights suddenly flicker, then snap off completely. Darkness swallows the house as Colin melts into the shadows. Then, without warning, Colin lunges out and attacks, knocking Wade's gun to the floor. A brutal fight erupts between them. Meanwhile, Jen battles to break free from Colin's hypnotic grip. Her hands clutch the bed frame as if glued in place, but she fights back. With every ounce of strength, she finally wrenches free and stumbles out of the room. She bursts into the fight and spots Wade's gun lying on the floor. But before she can grab it, Colin spins toward her and shouts, "Sleep!" Her body locks up. For a moment, she goes still, but Jen refuses to surrender. Clinging to her last shred of willpower, her hand trembles as she snatches the gun. She pulls the trigger and collapses. Jen jolts awake, panic flooding through her as she frantically asks where Colin is. Wade steadies her with a gentle touch, his voice calm and soothing. But when he whispers, "It's over, my love," her blood runs cold. She remembers those words, heard deep under hypnosis. Only Colin ever called her that. The realization slices through her fog, and suddenly the mask slips. Colin's face stares back at her. It's not Wade holding her, it's Colin. Acting on pure instinct, Jen strikes him and bolts from the room. She stumbles into another, only to find the real Wade on the floor bleeding. In her hypnotized state, she had shot him. As Colin storms in, Wade, barely conscious, whispers to Jen and points weakly to his ankle holster. She sees the gun. This time, Jen doesn't hesitate. She grabs it, takes aim, and pulls the trigger. Julian Sullivan, Dr. Colin, falls dead. A month later, Jen starts a new job and visits Brian, still in a coma. She whispers an apology, blaming herself for dragging him into this nightmare. Before leaving town, Jen stops at the police station to congratulate Wade on his promotion. He smiles and hands her a small gift. Outside, she unwraps it, a self-hypnosis CD, a quiet reminder of how far she's come and how fragile the mind can be. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. We've got some amazing videos coming your way. Take care, and see you next time.